Having in place the right sort of will and an up-to-date will is perhaps one of the most important things that a person can do for their loved ones. But if you don't like to think about reviewing your will, then you aren't alone. Over the years, I've acted for many clients who felt that way. It requires you to consider your life, your relationships, your priorities, and it reminds you of your mortality, and all of that can feel quite uncomfortable. But I'm going to explain to you today why you must review your will. A will is an incredibly powerful tool. We all know that a will deals with who will inherit your estate on death, but did you know that a will can also be structured so that the inheritance you might want to leave to young children or to other individuals can be managed for them until they're older? It can be used to appoint guardians for children under the age of 18. You might want to provide financial support for an individual during their lifetime, perhaps a surviving spouse or partner. But ultimately you want the capital of your estate to pass to other individuals, maybe children from an earlier relationship. And a will can be structured to do just that. And in some circumstances, a will can be drafted to save significant amounts of inheritance tax. And I'm talking serious sums of money here, tens of thousands of pounds, and in some cases, hundreds of thousands of pounds. So you need to be reviewing your will. Firstly, to check that you've got the right sort of will in place, and secondly, to ensure that your will is up to date. Since you made your will, I'm sure you'll have experienced some changes in circumstances, and it may be that some of those changes have impacted on your will planning. Today I'm going to highlight 3 changes in circumstances that should always prompt an immediate review of your will. And these are changes to your relationships, changes to your assets, and I'm going to start by looking at changes in legislation. Over the last 13 years or so, we've seen quite a few changes in legislation that may have impacted on your will planning. I'm going to mention a few of them now. The first one that I want to mention is in relation to the inheritance tax nil rate band. You may be aware that this is the maximum value of assets that a person can leave tax-free on death, and since 2007 it's been transferable between spouses and civil partnership couples. So if it's not used on the first death, the survivor will have up to 2 nil rate bands available. But there is a potential trap that can arise in certain circumstances, and the risk of this trap arising is for people who have wills that contain a survivorship clause. A survivorship clause is one of those clauses that says that your beneficiaries will only benefit if they survive you by a period of time, typically 28 days or a month. The key point to note here is that if your will contains one of these survivorship periods, whatever period of time, you need to review your will immediately to ensure that you're not at risk of falling into this potential trap. In 2017, we saw the introduction of a new nil rate band called the residence nil rate band. But not everyone's going to be able to benefit from this because there are some qualifying conditions. So you need to review your affairs, firstly to check that you will be able to benefit from it, that you qualify for it, and secondly to make sure that your executors will be able to claim it on your death. Because again, there are potential traps that people can fall into if their will wasn't drafted with the residence nil rate band in mind. And the final change in legislation I want to mention briefly is relevant to you if you're leaving part of your estate to charities. It's been the case for some time now that if you leave 10% of your estate to charity, then the rate of tax on the rest of your estate reduces from 40% to 36%. So those are just a few of the changes in legislation that we've seen that may have impacted on your will planning. And what about your assets? Have you had a change in your assets since you made your will? Has your estate increased or decreased substantially in value? Have you disposed of an asset that's specifically referred to in your will, or acquired something that you would like to leave specifically to a loved one? Have you acquired assets that qualify for business property relief or agricultural property relief, both of which are valuable reliefs from the charge to inheritance tax if certain conditions are met? You might want to incorporate into your will some tax planning measures so that you can maximise on the tax savings associated with those types of assets. And what about your relationships? Since you made your will, have you married, divorced, or started to cohabit? A change in your relationship status is likely to have a huge impact on your will planning. For instance, not many people appreciate that getting married will automatically revoke a person's will, unless the will was made in expectation of that marriage and contained appropriate clauses. Have you reviewed the appointment of your executors, trustees and guardians recently? And are those people still the right people for those roles? Are you still in touch with all of your beneficiaries, or have new people come into your life that you'd like to benefit? Do you have any concerns about your beneficiaries, that they may get involved in a divorce or bankruptcy, or not be capable of managing the inheritance you're planning to leave to them? Do you need to consider incorporating into your will some financial protection for them? So, do you have the right sort of will in place, and is that will up to date? Does it take into account the changes in legislation that we've seen over the years? And does it properly reflect who you want to benefit from your estate, and take into account their personal circumstances and build in appropriate management structures and financial protection for them? And can you be absolutely sure that your executors aren't going to be paying more inheritance tax on your death than is necessary? Will planning, more so than ever before, is a specialist area. Please make it your priority to review your will and to put in place the right sort of will if you don't already have one. And if you would like our help in doing that, then please contact me or another member of the private client team.